Assemblyman, thank you. Assemblyman Weber.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the bill?
On the bill.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to the bill today. I think there are many reasons to oppose it. There's the dubious nature of the so-called constitutional obligation that we'll be fulfilling that's cited by its proponents. I've heard a specious argument about an economic stimulus that $3.9 billion in additional debt in our state will add to our economy when there's no data to tell us exactly how much of a stimulus the first $8.6 billion that we provided to the state. I've even heard a reference that I had not heard before, that there's some correlation between air conditioning in a school and one's test scores, which I like to remind my colleagues on this side of the aisle that I'm one of the youngest members in this chamber. I was educated actually in the 34th Legislative District in Clifton. My K-8 schools were both constructed before World War II. I didn't have any air conditioning in them, and we seemed to manage just fine. I want to hit 2 points that are most important, however, and that is the widespread sense that this program, like the last one, just is not going to work, that the dollars aren't going to end up where they're supposed to be. Governor McGreevey told us that the School Construction Corporation was an investment, and we see how that investment turned out. The CEO of the SCC told us in November of 2004, quote, "The investments we are making will strengthen communities, our economy, and the quality of life for our families for years to come." We see how that turned out. Instead, the school construction program did exactly the opposite. It weakened our communities, our economy, and the quality of life for our families for years to come. That same CEO promised us, quote, "A great deal of care is being taken to safeguard the integrity of the dollars to be allocated through the Educational Facilities Construction and Financing Act." That sounds familiar. I think I heard that just about 20 minutes ago. We know that wasn't true then. The people have heard all of this before, Mr. Speaker, and for their efforts and for their debt, they got what the Star-Ledger called a blueprint for a $6 billion boondoggle. Well, what is this but a blueprint for a $3.9 billion boondoggle? Aside from those considerations, though, Mr. Speaker, I rise primarily to confront this notion that voting in favor of the bill is somehow a moral obligation for members of this body. The proponents of this bill long ago ceded the moral high ground on the issue of school construction. They abdicated their responsibility to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. And the money they took from New Jersey's taxpayers, they allowed to be wasted and abused. When they did that, they hurt the children of their communities and of our communities, the children they were supposed to be helping. And they betrayed the taxpayers of their state. If children in New Jersey are learning in modified clothes closets or coat closets, I'd suggest they go to the McGreevey administration and the proponents of this bill and ask them why closer controls weren't kept on the first $8.6 billion of taxpayer dollars that were spent on it. Now the same people come back looking for even more money. But dumping good money after bad, Mr. Speaker, is not our moral obligation. Neither is it moral to acknowledge, as the sponsor of this bill has publicly, that the planned bond issue is as much as 60% greater than it was originally because some legislators in suburban areas needed to be bought off in order to support the legislation. That is far from a moral consideration, Mr. Speaker. Indeed, it's the height of cynicism, and it shows the bill for what it is. It's a political power play to take money from some and give it to others. Worst of all, we're piling this bill, the bill to pay for all this construction, on the backs of yet unborn generations of New Jerseyans. Our children and our grandchildren will be paying this debt years from now. There's nothing moral about that, Mr. Speaker. I agree with the comments that I've heard on this floor. This bill is about our children, about the generations of New Jerseyans who will have to pay for this bill. That's why I'm opposing it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.